Hello. So today we have already undergone the agency committee that determines crew readiness. At the end of past week, on Thursday, the crew has undergone integrated sims. I understand that many of you were present at those simulations, and I know that the crew has passed all the tests. The grade is excellent. And for today's procedure for the agency, where there are various representatives present of various agencies and organizations, everybody had signed the protocol and concluded that, or stated that, the crew has completed their training, and the crew is admitted to the completion of training. And introductory word, that's enough for introduction. If anybody has any questions, or if no questions, let's get started. Who has questions? Were you able to train for all the contingency situations when you were taking your tests? During our training, in general, we normally practice, during our sims, we practice actions in design contingency situations, which means that we train for what has been discovered on the ground. And so those are the anomalies that we simulate. Of course, the off-nominal situations that are inadvertent and unpredictable are impossible to train for. So we could say that if we did train for them, it was not completely. When we were flying our expedition 3 years ago, then there was a pump that failed, and that was not a design contingency situation. And the restroom failed, and we were without the restroom for about a month. No, don't tell them that, because they'll say that they were without any restroom for a long time. Here, usually, how do we deal with that? Usually, we use our smarts, and we use whatever is available to us. At least for the shuttle, we had already nominal parts. We put it together, and I'm going to add a little bit, Sergey, that although the training goes according to the nominal program and the design contingency situations, but some of nominal situations are also being simulated. And at the stage of training, the crew is thinking about what might happen. If you look at the program of training, and we have analyzed that program, the preparation for that nominal program takes about 20% of the training, and 80% realistically takes to train for what is to be done if something goes wrong. So as far as the design situations or off-nominal situations are concerned that are not design situations, the crew must be ready to mitigate those situations. And also, I remember now that, of course, during the spacewalk of our first colleague, we had to disassemble pyrobolts of our Soyuz, and nobody could have ever thought that the crew would have to go out and work on our own vehicle without coming back to the Earth. So we had to do some modifications in order to get back safely to Earth. And it's hard to work in space anyway, especially disassemble something there. And in flight, and also Sergei Konstantinovich visited us. Deputy General Designer visited and observed the training and told us how to work there and what to do there. And also, by the way, to continue as far as training is concerned, those are questions which people are not ready to ask. Speaking of training, certain skills are formed. It's not just that a flight program is simulated, but during the training, the skill that is formed can also be used for various situations, not necessarily for nominal flight itself. And last time what we had to do, the skill that has been created, the overall generic skill with working with the station came in very handy. More questions?
Television. Mr. Koss, Michael, can you compare preparation to a Soyuz flight with the shuttle preparation? The first question, a question to Mr. Kurokawa. Can you please, you're a medical specialist, does it help you in your scientific program, and what is your scientific program on board the International Space Station?
Okay, I'll start out. The preparation for a space shuttle mission is about a year in duration. You're assigned about a year out with intensive training for about 8 months. We were assigned to this flight about 2.5 years before. I was assigned 2.5 years before. It's a much longer road, and you're traveling around the world, training in the U.S., in Russia a lot, in Japan, in Germany, in Canada, and so it's a long road. It's a great thing though to work with some of the finest people around the world in the space programs, and it's been a great experience for me.
Okay. As a medical doctor, I am interested in science, especially life science. Is it okay? Okay. And I would like to explain and inform the importance and the significance of experiments on board the station. During our mission, I'm conducting plant experiment using cucumbers. And that auxin is a plant hormone, and that its distribution affects the generation of and the growth of plants. And in this experiment, we concentrate on the auxin-related proteins, so that we can determine how the auxin works. Yeah. And it will benefit people all over the world, for example, in the future space plant. And as a medical doctor, if something medical emergency happens on board the station, I'd be happy to, I hope that kind of thing does not happen, but if it does happen, I'd be happy to help fellow crew members.
What kind of talisman or good luck charm are you going to have on your flight? A major portion of experiments that is conducted on board is a continuation of that scientific program that we have started that we've been doing 3 years ago, and during our EVA with Alexander Samakutyaev, we're going to maintain communication. We're going to do the appropriate work with that hardware, and if everything is successful, it will allow us to process large volumes of information. Unfortunately, we can't do it now. Otherwise, naturally, there will be human research experiments, typology. To decipher those experiments probably doesn't make any sense because it will take a long time. So we're going to continue our experiments, Saner, Hurricane, Uragan, and also experiments devoted to the studies of the waters of the world ocean. And those will be experiments directed towards mitigating or fighting the elemental disasters. Also, there will be studies, atmospheric studies, and maybe we'll do a certain analysis which will improve the ability to forecast elemental disasters. All of those regions are photographed, are studied, and Saner, that is to aid our fleet so that we could always have fresh fish. Also, the experiments are continuing on the studies of radiation background around the Earth and the effect of radiation, both solar radiation and other radiation, both on the people that are on the station and also on the station itself, on the materials. Alexander and I are going to install a new series of specimens which will be exposed on the surface of the station. So these are the major experiments that will be conducted. This last time I had a little doggy. No, I had a bat, a soft bat flying last time. And right now, Yegor gave me, as a child, he watches movies, and so he's interested in the popular characters of modern cartoons. Okay, if I may, it's from a cartoon Smishanik, a character from a cartoon. You have undergone successful training, and you have passed all the tests with a great excellent. What is your mood? What is your feeling when you're going to Baikonur? Good. Because of my excellent instructors, we are ready for flight. And I am proud that I am a member of a wonderful international crew. And this is a great honor for me. Space flight is. And especially because it's close to the 50th anniversary of the first flight of man in space. And I'm hoping that in the future the international cooperation will grow.
Question, Mr. Furukawa. What is your updated information to have a conversation with people in Tohoku who are suffered by earthquake? Which date it can be, and what kind of message you guys send to the people in Tohoku?
Okay. I requested that I have some meeting with those that suffered from earthquake in Tohoku area, and it is still under coordination. So at this point, I cannot clarify the date.
Stephanie Stoll of NASA TV from Mike Fossum. What is your level of excitement as you head into your final months of training before you leave for Kazakhstan space?
Hey, Stephanie, that's a great question. It's been a long road getting here, and it's been a hard road getting here. We've gone through a lot. We've trained really hard together. I've become like brothers with my crewmates, and it's an exciting thing. So we're ready for the next step as we have completed our training in Star City with the commissions last week. That was a great step, and now we move forward to Baikonur in next week, where we complete the final fit checks and preparations and trainings there. So we're excited about it. It's a long road, but now most of that hard work is on the ground is behind us, and we're looking forward to the hard work ahead in space.
And a follow-up to that, today we're expecting to launch the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Do you have any thoughts as we head into that final historic mission?
We're keeping track of Endeavor's progress through the countdown and the progress through the night as they began, the rotation and the fueling and everything. So we're keeping track of the guys, and we're cheering them on. And I've flown twice with Mark, and I can't believe he's going to space without me. I gave him a hard time and told him if he waited too long, we would meet in space again.
A question to continue the subject of earthquake. Is there such a special program of Japanese or Russian astronauts and cosmonauts in support of that? Maybe there are capabilities to see what happens in Japan from onboard the ISS. Is it possible to forecast tsunami?
Yes. Okay. There is, of course, from International Space Station, astronauts and cosmonauts can observe the Earth and can take photographs of the area. And so far, to my best knowledge, there is no new program or related to earthquakes.
I'm going to add, indeed, right now there is no program to forecast earthquakes or track down the movement of tsunami, and unfortunately earthquakes too. What we could help with is to do photographs, and of course photographs are a consequence, and if there is a good resolution and a good area could be covered. Unfortunately, nowadays, or in this particular case, we work with the evaluation of the results, of the consequences, but unfortunately we're unable to forecast extreme situations. I would like to add also, indeed, you can take pictures of what has already happened. So to speak of the fact that the picture may help forecast is not quite correct. During my previous flight, there was Katrina hurricane, which has done serious damage in the south of the United States. The the city of New Orleans suffered greatly. We saw a huge cloud, and meteorological satellites may show photography with greater resolution. But the results that we have, if we were to talk about earthquakes, then if you were to look at it from on board the ISS, you can't really see much, but indirectly one might be able to predict the signs, the symptoms of an earthquake, not be able to predict the development of earthquake or tsunami, because it may be in quite a different area. It may be conditioned by the geomagnetic properties of the Earth. And right now, there are scientific experiments that are ongoing on that subject, and data collection is ongoing, and it's not about forecasting an earthquake. The only thing where we could participate in forecasting catastrophes is that the ice caps are photographed continuously. And if you remember, there were pictures that were dropped of 5 days ahead of time, where the scientists were able to see that the ice cap was going to descend. And right now, it's clear that it happened unexpectedly because of the procedural complications. But right now you can see our main task is photography of ice caps and monitoring that is continuing, the Kolka ice cap, and the process of collecting the data and tracking down the motion of the ice caps. This is all in progress. Also, as far as a blog is concerned, we're communicating about the blog with Roscosmos representatives. And you're probably aware of that. Right now, we're just in the process of analyzing what is more interesting, perhaps, and maybe not too costly as far as work hours are concerned. So we will have something for sure. Thank you. Is it the easiest way to learn what you're going to go through before flight is to ask your colleagues, to consult them, exchange their opinions? Sergei is an outstanding commander, a great ISS commander. This is my first flight. But I think that the variety is important, both as far as international representation and experience. And we are that way, both as a crew and also we are well synchronized as the crew. And I'm in the process of studying it further. We're working together very well.
To share their experience with you. What kind of questions did you ask them?
Yes, yes.
For example, what was different from what you thought from taking training on the ground?
Well, I asked a question, what were the difference between the training on the ground and the real flight? The thing is that as soon as we're together, sooner or later, of course we don't always talk about work. We have other topics to discuss, but as a rule, the analysis of any simulation during the debrief, we always pay attention at those things which are impossible to simulate. So the data exchange is ongoing continuously, uninterruptedly. And it's not just the main crew, but the backup crew participates. And Satoshi is worried about information overload. We have very good relationship among ourselves, and usually, as a rule, there are certain fine points that come up which you can't remember immediately, and the process of formation of information exchange, as it happened 10 years ago, where my commander shared his experience with me, not only during training, but also during travel, and this is all ongoing. So, what about the everyday life moments that you cannot simulate? This is the main thing, of course, because during the work on the station, instructors train us both here and in Houston, but the quotidian details that are easier to bear are less costly to be trained for. The simplest one is, let's see, there's certain details. Let's say, how do you prepare food? What sort of things are you going to encounter? Any travel, any trip, any communication, or any storytelling when the cosmonauts and astronauts get together and they reminisce about their flights. And so this sort of thing, even though it's not a formal lesson, but such history, such exchange of information is extremely useful, especially because it has been heard not as a part of an official lesson, but because you've heard it from a real person to whom it occurred in reality a couple of years ago in flight. And so I've been telling such things to Sergei. I'm sure Sergei does the same. Also, when we were training for flight with Oleg and during the traditional meeting with the medical specialists who participate also in planning as far as training is concerned, let's say I didn't have this information that I had to wait after eating a certain time before I do some physical training. And on board, it turned out that it was not quite comfortable or convenient to do the physical exercise right away after a meal. And if you do it against that advice and you're on a treadmill, you can feel that piece of bread jumping with you on the treadmill. So these are those little things which cannot be felt on the ground. Sergey, you are a student of the Russian Academy, and are you planning on taking an exam as a part of your study? Yes, I don't want to miss the exams that are due, and I believe that I will make sure that I'll take the necessary tests. I already have a plan, a curriculum of the next set of exams that I have to pass. I got the email. So it'll take me a long time to answer all the questions. Sergey, a question for you and the crew. The events that you will be responsible for in flight, if those are minor dates, minor events, if the ground doesn't remind us, then we won't be able to celebrate them. But let's say, remind us that today's been 50 days, or next time it's going to be 100 days. If the ground sends us reminders, then we will be celebrating certain minor events. But otherwise, we're only going to have 3 additional state holidays. One of them is a Russian holiday, June 12th, and 4th of July is the American holiday, and in September there is a certain holiday as well. And the final question.
One of the things we will celebrate during this flight is we will be there for the final space shuttle flight of Atlantis on STS-135. We look forward to seeing Chris Ferguson and his crew. It will be an exciting time. It will also be a sad time as the shuttle completes its 30 years of mission.
Hello, dear Sergey Alexandrovich, dear Oleg Dmitrievich. It happened so that your first flight coincided with our anniversary and of our cosmonautics, and this particular new flight is also happens to be also coincide with an anniversary. So if you have any other questions for the backup crew, we could accept that. Well, I have a question. My signal is Readies, which is a constellation which starts in the north hemisphere and ends in the southern one. Our signal is Antares because there is a tradition to select it from the constellation of bright stars. And my children's names start with the letter A. That's why I have chosen the brightest constellation. It's orange is called Antares, and that's where it comes from. The question was, did you call and ask? Yes. Because of him, I have experienced cosmonauts Vladimir Titov and Sergei Leonov, and of course Sergei Krikalev. And nevertheless, I called him as my commander and instructor. And I called my father, yes. I told him what goes on board, what is expected on board, and then he would tell me that I don't work hard enough, that I have to work better. So he was trying to teach me as a professional would teach his disciple. I took advantage of the fact that I know Sergei Arkhipyevich personally. I have called him, and it was great to talk to him, and I shared my observations with him, which were very useful in terms of how the information is transmitted. And it was he has such a great memory that he knows exactly what to recommend, what advice to give. And what did you ask your father? At first I complained to him how hard it is to do physical exercises on board. And he said it was hard for him as well, and that he was forced to do that. And this is how he was able to maintain his health. And so that was one of the first discoveries that we were talking about earlier, how hard it was to do physical exercises on board. It was a great press conference. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I think it was interesting to everyone. And the traditional picture, photos, and if anybody has any personal questions, go ahead. The crew had a busy day today.
Все, спасибо всем, до свидания.
No, there's a lot of traditions associated with the Russian program and stuff. So we finished the big commissions last week, Thursday and Friday. Really big deal. We come in and we stand at attention in front of the board of the commission, and we report in the morning. And I did that the first day as the commander for the space station. And then we go through the full day of jumping through the hoops and running the systems and handling the emergencies and stuff. And at the end of the day, we sit down with the commission, and they've been watching every detail of what we've been doing for the entire day, and then they pick us apart.
I remember 6 months ago when you were here, and you told me that, it wasn't your time, but now it's your time, and what does it feel like to finally be this close to launch?
It's really unbelievable. It's such a long road, and you're racing around the globe. It seems like I spend half of my life jet lagged. As we go around the globe and going through the different things, and we're there. We're down to the last steps now, and when we went through the big qualification exams last week, this was the prime crew, and all eyes are on us, and making sure we're ready. And we are. The crew has really come together really well, and we just had a great day in the Soyuz sim last Friday, and nailed it. And that's such a great feeling.
I know one of your sons graduated in pilot training just a few months ago, and what are his thoughts on his dad going up on a Soyuz just a few weeks from now?
He thinks Dad's a little nuts, but my kids have grown up, knowing me in the space program and living this dream in the early years before I was selected, and then going along with this now. I'm blessed to have 4 children. 2 of them are married, and a granddaughter now that's about 10 weeks old. And leaving that little girl behind was
are the hardest part of the whole thing.
Внимание. Все, спасибо. Дублирующий экипаж. Okay. Okay.
Stand there. This is one of the most solemn of the traditions for the Russian space program and preparing to go fly is a visit to Red Square. What we have behind me is the wall of the Kremlin. These are some of the heroes of the Soviet Union and heroes of Russia with great distinction who are actually, their ashes are entombed here in the wall of the Kremlin. And we come by to put flowers on the graves of Yuri Gagarin and Sergei Korolev, to honor them as the pioneers of the space program, and we really walk in their shadows and stand on their shoulders as we're reaching up to space. So it's a really a neat thing to participate in as an American. You know, we recognize the achievements of our Russian comrades and the other pioneers and travelers who came before us. It's really an honor to be part of this today.
Внимание. Спасибо. Желающие фотографироваться с экипажами.
And everybody can get in the picture if you like as well.
Like our case.
Mike, what are your feelings today on visiting this historic area here?
Oh, we're inside the Kremlin walls here, and it's a place of such historical significance. Really, the Red Square area in downtown Moscow is one of the most famous places, the most recognizable places on the planet. And for me, it's such on display here, and so every crew comes here just to visit, to touch these things of national and historical significance, and to take our picture here. It's just part of the pomp and circumstance. It's part of the ceremony. It's part of the progression that we have as we move closer and closer to launch to take part in these traditions. That's a good angle.
Firing chain is armed. Suppression water system is armed.
The water system, main engines will light in a moment.
Power for main engine start.
Main engine starting. Come up to full speed. Computers check it.
And liftoff for the final launch of Endeavour. Expanding our knowledge, expanding our lives in space. Roll program. Roger roll.
Go, Endeavour. Roger roll.